Good. Is that different from what we're saying? Okay. Okay. So we do a few, set the ground rule. Somebody asked a question in the public comment. It's in the minutes.
Good evening. Good evening. What I call our meeting order this evening. Certainly would like to welcome you to our council meeting.
I would ask, please, if you have cell phones, to please turn them off at this time. I would ask that we would stand and have pledge of allegiance by Councilmember Joyce and prayer by Mayor Pro Tem Reed.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you would like to pray with us, would you please remain standing? Dear God, we gather today as leaders and citizens of this great city, seeking your guidance and wisdom. We acknowledge your sovereignty over all things and your love for our community. We pray for your presence to be felt in this meeting, God. We pray for your guidance, your discussions, and your decisions are all in your name. Help us to prioritize the needs of our citizens, to promote justice, and to foster a spirit of unity and cooperation. Grant us wisdom to make decisions that benefit the common good and the courage to stand for what is right. Make our words be with kindness, respect, and compassion. Bless our city officials, our staff, and our citizens with your peace, understanding, and strength. May our collective efforts bring glory to your name and prosperity to our city. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Let the record show that all our council members are present tonight. On our consent agenda, we have approval of minutes of August the 2nd, August the 12th, August the 28th, and September the 9th, 2024. If I can get a motion on the second to approve those minutes on the consent agenda.
Second.
Are there any more discussion? All in favor, show of hands. Opposed, none. Vote unanimously. Zoning hearing, no business, a public hearing, map amendment 2024.012 point map, Racetrack Incorporated, 4 Madison LLC, Bell Land Company, LLC, Penitent Land Company, LLC. Molly, you're going to talk about that if you would. Come
Yeah,
off. Go
absolutely.
ahead.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
Sure.
I'm actually going to present both applications in one staff
That's
report.
fine, A and B.
I think it makes more sense. So we'll go over both of those requests together. Racetrack requests both a map amendment and a variance to develop a truck stop / travel plaza on 3 current lots of record, 046A, 019, 046A, 020, and 046002. Written public comment has been received. It's included in your staff report as an attachment. In addition, a final report from the Northeast Georgia Regional Commission as part of the Developments of Regional Impact has been included in your staff report as an attachment. I'm going to pause here while Ken pulls up the first map for me. And if you will zoom in on the area in question for me a little bit more. So you'll see the area outlined in black and hashed to some degree. That is the approximately 2.57 acre portion of 046002, which is being requested to rezone from general commercial district and estate lot residential to interstate commercial district. Now combining that area plus the one brownish red rectangular piece of property to the southwest there, that is the combination of property that the variance request is being applied, which is a variance request from 300 feet to 563.46 feet, a variance of 263.46 feet, again, for that proposed combined lot. He's going to pull up another map here just so we can take a look at the site plan itself. And that is what that looks like fully combined. You can see the map amendment portion there to the right and up toward the top. That gets to the 60/40 lot coverage requirements. And then the area to the bottom, which is where the majority of the building, not necessarily pavement, but the building and the canopies are. And you'll have a chance to look at that again during the applicant's presentation. If we could go back to the PowerPoint. The Planning and Zoning Commission did recommend unanimous approval of both the map amendment and the variance. And staff recommends that any motion to approve include the following condition: construction of a stub providing future interparcel access to the neighboring property 046A018. And that concludes staff's report.
Can I ask you something, Marla? The last time I
Absolutely.
think we was going to have this public hearing, it was postponed because staff was still waiting on some more information to come in.
That is that Northeast Georgia Regional Commission final report. The DRI process requires that a final report be issued prior to making a final zoning decision, not being issued prior to any hearings. That's why the Planning Commission could have their hearing, make their recommendation, and it could come before you. You could have had your hearing at the last meeting and then postpone your decision. You all elected to wait, have your hearing and decision at the same time.
Okay.
So Molly, is the number one, the condition you put there under the approval, is that a reflection of the DRI report?
That is correct.
Relating to the 5 acres?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. At this time, our public hearing is open. Each side will have 15 minutes, if you would come. State your name, please.
Good evening, Julie Sellers with Dillard Sellers here on behalf of the applicant Racetrack. I'm joined with my colleague Baxter Russell, and the Racetrack team that has joined us tonight is John Preedy and Roshi Craven. So they are the Racetrack representatives. I'm going to do a brief presentation. We are certainly happy to answer questions that you may have. Hopefully I'll be able to address them in the presentation. We do have a brief PowerPoint.
And Ken is pulling that up now.
Great. Excellent, thank you. So we are here tonight and just have appreciated working with the city and in particular with the planning department staff on these 2 applications. We are requesting approvals necessary to open a new Racetrack location. And this is south of I-20. And I'm sorry, I'm getting used to having to have my readers and looking up. So, but we, just to give you a little bit of background, you may know Racetrack as a fuel station brand, but it's a privately owned business based here in Georgia. Their headquarters are in Atlanta. They've been in business since 1934 and have grown to the 2nd largest privately held business in the state of Georgia. As a brand and a business, Racetrack is very committed to high-quality standards with both its operations as well as the building and design. This is showing you just the location of the property. Again, it's south of I-20 where that blue star is located, right on 441. And this next slide is just showing the current conditions. So you might be familiar with this area. This is the city's heavy commercial area. This is the area in town that was designated for these types of uses to be able to generate the tax revenue, but really concentrate a more intense use sort of south of this beautiful downtown area where we are today for this hearing. As you can see, where that blue star is, that large kind of just concrete paved area, that is part of the property, and then we've got a couple of other parcels that we're adding to it. The total acreage is about 7.5 acres with those 3 different parcels, and this one parcel is right now used for truck parking and is 100% impervious, so it's 100%. This one of the benefits that I'll talk about with the approval of this would be actually being able to have a new development that complies with the current city code and brings that down so that we would have a maximum of 60% paving and use of the property, 40% green space, which is very significant. I'm going to go ahead and just talk about this. And as much as I want to talk about what we are asking for, I also want to talk about what we're not. So the code in Madison is the same as most codes around the country, actually. You can't define everything and address every single use. And so the use that we fit under is technically truck stop, but I want to make it clear that we're not really a truck stop. I think it's closer to a truck fuel station. So if you think about it, this is really a racetrack market that provides snacks, your soft drinks, your candy bars, as well as fuel for both passenger vehicles as well as the diesel component. We do not have we don't have showers, we don't have overnight parking, we don't have laundry facilities, we don't have, some of the other truck stops that you might be familiar with in the area have, I think there's an IHOP and a Hardee's, an extra kind of restaurant added to the building. We don't have any of those things. We have our racetrack market that does provide fresh food as well as snacks and prepared food, but it really is not a location that has driver support services. You're not going to have a truck driver that's going to drop a trailer off and take its cab somewhere else. There's no overnight parking. So I think it's important to make sure that there's an understanding. While we fall into this category, we don't really fit all of the traditional elements that you would think of maybe when you think about a truck stop. So going to the zoning request, this is another just sort of showing you the map that Molly had on the screen. This shows that 2 of the parcels already have that heavy commercial zoning, and then we're taking a portion of the residential property as well as the C3, which is a little less intense commercial property, to be able to combine them together with the same C4 zoning to allow for a unified development. This highlights so that you could see kind of on our site plan, what you see in red is the portion of the property that we are asking to be rezoned. So you can see, I don't know about percentage-wise, I don't want to say the majority of the property is already C4 zoned, but certainly a large portion of it, over half of it, already has that C4 zoning. The site plan, same site plan, but this just hopefully, I feel like when you look at site plans, it's really hard to visualize and see. It's just a piece of paper with lines on it. This really hopefully gives you a sense of that 40% that is the green space, so you can see this is not having paving over all of the site, but rather, this is limiting it to the 60% maximum. Another benefit of approval of this would certainly be new investment and tax revenue in an area of town that has been designated for this heavier commercial use and is appropriate in this area. A third benefit, I think, when we think about, and I'm going to touch briefly on traffic, is this eliminates one of the curb cuts off of 441. So you have traffic that is going in and out of the site from 2 entrance and exit points, not 3. So that really does, we have worked very closely with GDOT as well as the traffic engineers to design the site so that people get safely into the site, safely out of the site, and get off of 441 so that we don't create any congestion. One of the things that I did want to touch on is the condition that was included after the DRI report. The condition was making a recommendation that you all consider adding a condition that would require us to stub out access to the property to the left of your screen. So that's the hotel property that is there. And we have some very serious concerns about having any kind of interparcel access. When you think about interparcel access from a planning perspective, you're trying to get cars off of the main road and have an ability to access access different locations without having to get back on the main road. Our site has been designed with safety first and foremost in mind. So the traffic flow is something that the engineers spend a lot of time and consideration on. The other thing that I wanted to point out, and I don't know if my kind of drawing makes a whole lot of sense here, but I'll try to explain it to you. The family that owns the property, that's what the portion of the property that we're buying, they also own property around it that they're retaining, and so Racetrack has an agreement for where I have circled in purple, I'm going to call it our shared access. So we already have inter-parcel connectivity with parcels, but those parcels are to our right and behind us. So the property in green will be accessed through that purple arrow, that shared access, as well as you can kind of see, I'm going to call it a little stub out close to where I put that purple star. That allows the access to that commercial property there. So I think that the intent of interparcel connectivity is being met, and what this achieves is allowing the curb cut to service multiple parcels in a very safe and intentional manner. We are highly concerned if we open it up over where I have that red circle with a future development of the hotel, we would create a potential for some conflict between the vehicles and trucks that are using the Racetrack location and, cutting through, and we are very concerned about safety. So we would ask for your approval tonight of the rezoning, not to include that condition. And happy to, if you all have questions, we can talk about that in a little more detail. And then I'm going to touch on traffic briefly, and again, happy to answer questions that you may have. US 441 is the road that we access onto. That is a designated truck route. This is part of the reason, and a very large reason, why this particular location was very attractive to Racetrack for this new development. You've got more than 16,000 cars a day just on 441. I'm not talking about 20, and I just sat in the cars on 20, so we all know how many. I don't have the count of that, but there's a lot. And so when you think about from a traffic perspective, we are providing a service to folks that are already on the roads. This isn't a Costco. It's not a destination where you're going to have people on the other side of downtown coming through downtown to get down to go to a Costco or some other kind of a business that would really draw. It's providing a service, as well as you may have people coming off of 20 and then getting right back on 20. So we really do not anticipate traffic coming through downtown as a result of approving this development. I do this work a lot, and I read a lot of traffic studies. I'm not an engineer. We do have an engineer here with us that can get into the details, but what I can tell you over my experience in talking to the engineers is the level of service is really what we are concerned with. Because what that means is, what is a resident's experience going to be? And a level of service at D or better is the goal. If you go below D, then you're looking at what do we need to do to improve the conditions. And in this situation, our level of service after this is constructed, taking into account the traffic that would be coming to this business, and keep in mind, any new business in this commercial corridor, you hope that there's traffic going to them, otherwise they're not going to be lasting very long and won't end up generating the benefit for the city. But with this, the level of service is B and C. So we are above that level that would cause concern. That is my presentation on the rezoning. I know that we have 15 minutes. I don't know procedurally if you all would like for me to go ahead and talk about the variance, or if we need to pause, and the variance part is fairly short, but just whatever direction you all would like.
My recommendation would be to take them separately, and so anybody opposed to the rezoning, or in favor of the rezoning, speak now, and then we can take the variance up.
Great. All right. Thank you. Again, we have appreciated working with the city and happy to answer questions that you may have. And if I can, just if there's anyone else to speak or reserve the rest of my time. Thank you.
so much. Is there anyone else here to speak for this particular amendment? If not, if they...
I'd like to speak for.
Who? Go ahead.
Brooks Bennington.
Go ahead, Brooks.
Can you see me?
Yeah, we can see you now, yeah. Go
Okay.
ahead.
Hello, my name is Brooks Bennington. I'm a Madison resident. I also own the property at 29 Eatonton Road, and I represent members of Pennington Land Company. I acquired the 29 Eatonton Road parking lot that was already redeveloped as such by the previous owner, with hopes that there may be a higher and better use. When Racetrack approached us, I was and still am excited. I've been stopping at the Racetrack brand convenience stores since I could drive, and they've always seemed to have the nicest facilities, the cleanest restrooms, the cheapest fuel. I personally think this redevelopment would take out an eyesore, which is my truck parking facility, and redevelop the area into something that's a benefit to the community. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate those comments. Is there anybody else here to speak for? Anyone here to speak against this amendment? If not, this public hearing is closed and it's back to our council for debate. No, they didn't.
Could I ask a couple of questions, Mayor?
Sure.
I think back when I was in school, and I wish my mother had told me the goal is a D or better.
You and me both.
I think you said it was a B and C in your area right by the racetrack, but I know right up the street at the intersection there at Pierce Dairy Road, it's already pretty, I think it's already at a D, and I believe the traffic report brought that down to even lower, if I'm not mistaken. But, you know, I mean, I think it's important for the public to know that we've got 7,000 more daily trips as a result of this facility being here. We need to kind of keep that in mind. I might add also, if you don't mind, when we consider the planning and zoning department hearing and their vote, bear in mind that they took that vote with that before they got the DRI, and I believe before they got the traffic study. So to me, that misses a really kind of major component of what we're voting on. It diminishes, I think, the value of their recommendation to me, because traffic was never brought up at all, and that is kind of an important thing. Is the lowering of the LOS then for the Pierce Dairy Road, is that, I mean, a D to an F doesn't make a whole lot of difference. It's bad either way, I guess, right?
A couple of things, and, you know, when you think about, you know, I think we've got to keep the traffic report in context. So I think it's important to remember that this is not, you know, this isn't an assurance of what will happen. It's not an assurance of the number of cars. So this is simply an industry standard to be able to have some sort of a data point kind of metrics that can be used to compare apples to apples, so that we're saying, okay, if we're comparing adding this 8,000 square foot market with fuel, here's what we're showing as traffic. And then if we were going to compare that to, well, let's look at if we added a Costco or a hotel or an office building or whatever. So it's really, I think, a comparison point as opposed to a definitive adding X number of additional trips, because, there really isn't a way to provide with any certainty, and there's really also not a way, we know, because Racetrack has been doing this since 1934, they know how much volume of their customers are I don't want to say they know exactly. They don't know the exact percentage, but they have metrics that they use to be able to do site selections, and that's based on the current traffic on the road, not anticipating we're going to draw additional traffic in from different places. And when you look at the additional trips that are in the traffic report, keep in mind that they count trips as, coming in. Well, we don't have overnight parking, and we're a gas station and a market, so people are coming in and they're leaving. And that ends up getting counted as 2 trips because you're entering and exiting. So it's really, getting into, the numbers. Will we have traffic that will be coming to our location? 150%. If we don't, something has gone really wrong. But we certainly are not going to be creating 7,000 people new to the area driving, on the road. It would really be looking at, maybe if these numbers were accurate, if we're looking at 3,800 cars coming in, keeping in mind that that's on a road with 16,000 cars, so a fair percentage of that would be people that are already there. So we really, I think the traffic engineers, they're looking at the conditions, they're looking at, do they need to do extra things to make sure that this isn't going to be a detriment, and if they do find something, those get reported in the report, and we don't have those recommendations here, so.
And to that point, I would add that our city engineer, Aaron Wadley, I'm kind of paraphrasing here, but he said, even though it is over 7,000 daily trips more at that location, that there would be no significant increase on Main Street or in downtown traffic. And I think that's important to remember.
Absolutely.
It's well located, the majority will go on to I-20.
That's right.
I did want to make a point, and this is no reflection, I'm leaning towards personally looking at your proposal favorably, but I wanted to point out to staff and to the council members that as we approve this, to me, it puts a greater burden on looking at traffic at developments that come later, because there's a limited amount of capacity on that road, and we've already promised another 7,600 trips to Racetrack, which I think is going to be a great addition to our community here. But the next application that comes in, we need to pay close attention to traffic, because once the genie's out of the bottle, we're not getting it back in. So that's no reflection on this application. I don't want to imply that it is, but.
Right. I understand too, thank you, Councilmember Joyce, that there'll be exit off and exiting back on and entering back on the interstate.
Yes, sir, absolutely. And I do think that that's reflected in the report. It's, when you look at it, it really does. And that's what you would anticipate. Again, this isn't, it's not, and I don't know why I keep using Costco, maybe just because I just went, but it's not a destination that people are going to be cutting through town that would not normally be driving through town to get there. It's really going to be providing a service, a clean, safe location for the fuel opportunity on that, south of 20.
And one final question, if I could, Mayor. On the recommendations and in the DRI, in speaking with Molly earlier, those are all kind of GDOT related. You and we don't have much control over
That's right.
those, is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. And the Racetrack team has been working very closely with GDOT as they, even before the DRI, because, what Racetrack needs to do is make sure that GDOT, that what GDOT's vision and what's acceptable to GDOT from an access point works for Racetrack from an operation point. So that those are conversations that have really been ongoing for a while and really fleshed out. The interparcel connectivity, again, I think that that is something that from a planner's perspective, it doesn't surprise me that it was noted in the DRI. It certainly isn't a requirement, and we would really request the city to look long and hard at requiring some kind of connectivity. One thing I didn't mention, if we have to pave more, that's going to be taking that amount of impervious surface, and that would probably also require us. GDOT has approved what we have shown on the site plan. I don't have any way of knowing if we open it up to more traffic coming through, how that may impact, what they have currently said they want to see, which is what you see on the site plan.
Okay, then any more questions for Ms. Sellers?
Here I am on. If
Sure.
I make one comment to Eric's point, which is that we ought to be cognizant then after, if we do approve this and we're looking at, and to your point, I completely understand, it's not like there's going to be 7,000, or if we cut it in half, one car making 2 trips, 3,000 more cars on the road. Those are going to be comprised of the 16,000 vehicle traffic, and maybe a little bit more because it's all, oh, look, it's a racetrack, let's stop there.
Sure.
My point is this, though, and in terms of being cognizant of building out and making sure that we don't keep adding more, industry with more traffic. And the point is this, what we'll have now are more cars turning in more places. So that's going to create sort of a traffic, something to consider in terms of the traffic, in terms of the flow, in terms of what things are happening, how people are coming in and getting out and that sort of thing. So it's a lot more, and at the end of the day, it equals congestion in a way. And I'm not saying it won't be handled well, but I'm just saying, it's not necessarily adding more cars, it's adding more congestion in that area. And again, I think it's manageable now, it would be manageable, but again, in terms of our consideration going forward, we need to be aware of that, of creating more congestion without any kind of mitigation for that area. So, thank you for your report.
Thank you.
And I'm sure that once people exit off the interstate, they can probably look for some discomfort, but they'll exit off to get gas and just a 5 or 10 minute rest and back on the interstate. Now, I also heard you say that it's not going to be a truck stop, but if trucks do happen to stop, they have a 10 or 15 minute rest period.
Yes, there's no overnight parking, there's no, typically when you think of, I think most of the businesses that are labeled as truck stop, they are intended for the truck drivers to have services that are provided there. So showers being one, a lot of the truck stops, have an extra restaurant where you could order and sit down and have a burger and a Coke. The racetrack market does not have any of those offerings. We don't have the mechanics shop, so this would be something for if a truck driver that's on 441 that's about to get on 20 needs fuel, they can come in and get fuel. If they want to run in and buy a Snickers and a Coke, they could do that, but then they're back on the road. They're not going to linger. They're not going to stop and stay.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, may I make a comment? Please?
Sure.
I do agree with Eric that when he said there's other facilities there that are rated D at this point in time, typically what I would expect to see is that you're going to take business away from those places because it's cleaner. You have a reputation of having clean restrooms and all of that. So if I'm traveling through it and I'm getting off now and I see a racetrack and I see a D over here, I can guarantee you where my car is going to pull into. So I really think what's going to happen, this is my prediction, we probably won't see that much of an increase because you're going to take business away from the other ones. And that will either put them in a position where they'll have to upgrade their facilities to compete with you, which I think is a great thing. And I also like the taxes that you'll provide.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that type of thing helps us keep taxes down for our citizens.
So,
And I failed to mention employment also. You know, that's the other thing, is we will certainly be, you know, our employees, that's another opportunity to, you know, be able to provide additional business and employment opportunities in the city.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, may I?
Sure.
I think a valid point is it's not a destination. So the increasing of traffic shouldn't be as much. It'll just be people maybe coming to your facility, but it wouldn't have people coming because you're a Costco or a Walmart. So for me, that's a valid point.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I've got a question for staff, if I may. Molly, would the fact that they have connectivity to the parcels, the two to the south of it, and with her concerns raised about the safety and what's already been engineered and that kind of thing, how much heartburn would it give you to?
Not a lot. I mean, typically what we're seeing right now is interparcel access between two different businesses, and typically businesses to the rear as well. Good examples are Bojangles and Dunkin', Captain D's and, is it Captain D's? And DQ. And so the fact that it does have access to the south and to the rear of that property provides that interparcel access that we're looking for. We would just want to make sure that if and when those sites to the north redevelop, that we have the same conversation about ensuring that there is some level of interparcel access, not necessarily with racetrack.
So you're not wedded necessarily to this condition that Rick's asking about?
No, just something to consider. Wanted to make sure it was a point of conversation for us.
Thank you, Molly. Are there any more questions from Ms. Sellers? If not, thank you, Ms. Sellers. Are there any more
Thank you.
questions from our council? If there are no more questions from our council, then we are ready for either approval or disapproval of this map amendment, 2024.012 map, Racetrack Incorporated, IP Madison LLC, Bell Land Company, LLC, Pennington Land Company, LLC.
Mr. Mayor, I so move.
Second.
Are there any more discussion? All in favor, show of hands. Opposed, none, vote unanimously. Thank you so much. Okay, Molly, variance.
And as I mentioned, my previous staff report stands for the variance. If you have any questions for me, though, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay. Ms. Ellis, the public hearing is open.
Thank you. Good evening. Julie Sellers with Dillard Sellers here on behalf of the applicant Racetrack. I do have a very brief presentation just to kind of highlight the why behind the variance request. Your code has a lot width maximum, which, you know, when we start digging into the why behind it, I think the intent was so that you don't have these really massive long buildings that are just visually pretty obtrusive when you're driving down the road. And so, let's see.
Ken, I think if we could see the PowerPoint. Thank you.
Thank you. Great. This again just sort of shows you, and I know it's hard to really have a sense of scale when you see the building, but it's an 8,000 square foot building. It's a pretty modest footprint. And I put together this slide. I hope that this makes sense, and please let me know if you have questions. But basically, we have 3 parcels. So I've labeled them, you know, 1, 2, and 3. And when you add up all that road frontage, we exceed that 300 width maximum. What I hope is clear is that we've satisfied the intent of the code, because as you can see, our building does not span that full length of all 3 of those parcels. For us, the real driver and why we need to combine all the lots together is because of what goes on underneath the ground to make this operation work. You've got the fuel pumps, you have the utilities that are underground. This will be under one ownership, and so for operation purposes, we need to have one united parcel, and that's the driver for the request for the variance. Again, as you can see, the building does not, it's not massive, it doesn't span across, so we do believe that granting this variance is within keeping of the ordinance and the intent of the ordinance, and would appreciate your approval of the same. Again, happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Are there any questions for Ms. Sellers at this point? If not, thank you so much. Anyone else here to speak for this variance? Anyone here to speak against this variance? If not, the public hearing is closed and it's back to a council for a debate. More questions or motion?
If I may, I'd like to ask Molly a quick question.
Sure.
And that has to do with, we're seeing like vegetation and some masking showing. What does the city, what are we requiring of Racetrack as, and what are they offering?
So that is a preliminary landscape plan. The entire site will go before the Corridor Design Commission for their review. Typically, similar truck stops, gas stations, we do require some level of berming and landscaping to shield canopies specifically, not the buildings themselves, but the canopies, any type of parking. So that is most likely going to be top of mind. Ken can also speak to any other elements that they might be looking at during their review, if you'd like him to go into any detail.
No, I'm good, just so
Okay.
long as I understand that Corridor Design will be weighing in. on the
Yes,
whole
and Ken
thing.
has been a part of the conversations that we've had with Racetrack throughout this process.
Right,
So they're
right.
aware of those requirements and that they'll have to go through that review next.
And one last thing, don't we have a restriction with sign height, with signage
Yes.
at all?
Yes, we do. I think it's 15 feet? 10 feet.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, are there any more questions from council? If not, we can get a motion to approve or disapprove this variance. 2024.013, Racetrack Incorporated.
Mayor, I would move to approve the variance from section 700.2 at the aforementioned lots based on the application, public hearing, and discussion, and considering applicable standards.
Second.
There any more discussion? All in favor, show of hands. Opposed, none, vote unanimously. Thank you. Public hearing, text amendment, BPIV development. Molly?
Great, and this is, I think, one of the primary reason Brooks is here with us tonight, so he'll be chiming in after my staff report. But BPIV Development LLC requests text amendments to introduce parking lots and garages for vehicles in classes 1 through 3 in the FHWA 13 category vehicle classification system as a permitted use in the heavy commercial district, or C5, light industrial and limited commercial district, or I1, and light industrial manufacturing district, or I2, outside of the corridor design overlay district. I want to be very clear about that. It's those districts outside of the corridor overlay. The applicant has withdrawn those portions of the application related to RV or recreational vehicle parks and campgrounds. You saw that as a planned commercial district application to you all some months ago. No written public comment has been filed, and I don't have the clicker, so next slide, please. All right, so, thank you. Though it does appear the zoning proposal creates a narrow change and mitigates potential negative impacts for development scenarios accommodated by the zoning proposal, additional requirements have been recommended by staff and the Planning Commission to more fully address those potential negative impacts. Those include location, distancing requirements, minimum size, setbacks, screening, development requirements, idling, lodging, hazardous materials, and inoperable vehicles. After postponement for additional edits related to screening and security, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended unanimous approval. Staff has no conditions or reasonings to add to a recommendation of approval or denial. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Molly. This time the public hearing is open. For those who are for and want to hear for this text amendment.
And that would be
Anyone?
Brooke.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Sure, we can.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. My name is Brooks Pennington. Griffin. I'm a real estate investor and developer, born and raised here in Madison, Georgia. Several years ago, I started to develop self-storage facilities. Then I transitioned over to truck, boat, and RV parking facilities. I'm very knowledgeable about the space, and as a result, have invested a lot of money into it and have dedicated many hours to learn everything that I can about it. I went as far as developing a brand in the space and creating software dedicated to it. As I mentioned earlier, I desire that these developments in Madison be of high quality. That's what we see with Racetrack, and ultimately, I desire for my kids to grow up in the Madison that I love, which means that we also need to figure out how we protect the main corridors that we drive through on a regular basis. We have to do that through zoning, which is why I decided to propose this text amendment. When I knew that I wanted to get into the truck parking space, I bought the only already approved parking lot here in Madison. It was ugly when I bought it. It's still very ugly today. I joke that I bought the ugliest property in Madison, and I'm proud to say that I found a use that should make it a lot better. So thank you, Racetrack, and your Racetrack team for coming here and hopefully getting the redevelopment going on it. It allowed me the opportunity to take a step back to analyze the city as a resident and a stakeholder here to determine where and where not another truck parking facility should be located, if we should have them here. The more that I analyze the city and the zoning regulations, the more that I realized that we needed to modify these to protect Madison as we appreciate it, to keep these parking facilities off the main thoroughfares, to protect the view sheds with proper buffers, and to focus the traffic where we desire the traffic to be. Before we get any further, I feel like I need to talk a little bit about exactly what these are. Parking locations that we're discussing today are solely focused on providing long-term parking for trucks, trailers, boats, and RVs. These are not daily, these are not overnight parking facilities. There are no bathrooms, there are no showers. Just think of a parking lot to serve people in the community who are not allowed to park in their yard, not allowed to park in their street or in their community. This provides them the place that they can go and park their semi-truck. The location should be secure, need to have 360-degree fencing, gates, downlighting, cameras, cameras that have the ability to loop record for up to 2 weeks. The location provide owner-operator truck drivers a place to park their truck as soon as they get done with deliveries. And then small business owners a place to park their equipment. Think a dump truck, a food truck, a food truck trailer, all the other items that you can't really go and park in a neighborhood or a backyard. These should provide easy ingress and egress to enable the local residents to park these boats, campers, RVs, and other items that they can park them when they're not in use and keep them out of these residential areas. It'll focus the traffic to where you want the traffic to be, which is in these major industrial areas that are already zoned C5, I1, and I2. It's not necessarily aesthetically pleasing. Every time I drive by my long-haul storage site or any of the sites up and down I-20, I think about how buffers should have been put in place to prevent such eyesores. It's needed. It's needed because it allows us to focus the traffic where we want it to go. It supports small businesses, local businesses. It also enables proper zoning enforcement. Madison and Morgan County most likely have the zoning regulations in place that prohibit the parking of semi-trucks, boats, RVs in many areas and on streets, because we've seen it on streets. We've actually seen car accidents hitting parked trailers on streets. Most communities have these, but code enforcement and other officials don't have a place to try to tell someone to go park. They don't have these parking facilities that are strategically set up to support the local owner operators. And they don't want to enforce their zoning, because if they do that, then you're potentially pushing a small business owner elsewhere. You're pushing residents to go elsewhere if you don't have a place to offer them to park these items. So with that, I'll open it up for questions. I have a PowerPoint, but I think it was going to be too difficult to try to go through that, since I can't really click through, and I didn't have the ability to share here. But Ken, if you want to, you can pull up, if you pull up slide number 4.
And Brooks, I gave you presentation access, so you should be able to advance that. Oh, I guess that would only be if it was sharing yours. Just tell me when to, oh. There you
I got it. I think I have it. Maybe I don't.
Why didn't do that? Just tell me when you want it advanced, we'll do it. Oh.
Okay, right here. So this one, and then you can go to the next slide. These are what we're trying to avoid. This is the I-20 corridor, Newton County. It is not something that, in my mind, we want to see here in Madison. And so that's where we went through. We created the zoning, that the text amendments that you see, worked with Molly and Monica to do this. Ultimately, it's going to push everything outside of the corridor. You can go down to slide 10, which shows the buffers right here, and it makes every one of these types of developments, which in my mind, I think the way it's currently written, there's only a handful of properties that probably work for it, but it makes it so you can't see what's behind it. Back behind this, that's a 6-foot berm that's vegetated. You don't know what's there. Our setback that we put in here is actually twice as big as what you saw in this development that I used as an example. So you shouldn't see what's behind it. We protected it with, in my mind, adequate buffers and berms, and we've figured out a way to get it outside of the main corridors. And with that, I will turn it over for questions.
Are there any questions for Brooke?
Yeah, Brooks, this is Eric Joyce, Brooks.
Hey, Eric.
I wouldn't ask every developer this question, but I'm going to ask you because I might get a real answer. What are the unintended consequences that we need to look out for with the changes you're proposing here?
Well, that's a great question. We spent a lot of time on this, Eric. Unintended consequences, I would have said, would be a lot of small developments coming in. And Molly and Monica actually put in a 10-acre minimum here. You've seen this in Newton County where every 2-acre site got redeveloped for semi-truck parking as the industry's developed around it. And it's not really supporting, in my mind, necessarily the small businesses up there. They're supporting larger industries. I really do think that this one, as long as it kind of stays how it is in Madison, this supports your smaller owner-operator. By keeping it a 10-acre site, it's going to make it so you're not having these pop up everywhere. I think they did a really good job putting that requirement in.
We also have a 2,000-foot distancing requirement between sites.
I appreciate that answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Brooke.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate that. Anyone else here to speak for this amendment, text amendment? Anyone else here to speak against it? If not, this public hearing is closed. It's back to our council for a vote.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve text amendment 2024-009 BPIV Development LLC.
Second.
Are there any more discussion? All in favor, show of hands. Opposers, none, vote unanimously. Okay. That's it for you, Molly? Yeah, we got it.
No, you have one more
One
from
more.
me. Can't get rid of me yet. All right, so this last one is actually a city-initiated amendment to our home recreation ordinance. Home recreation includes swimming pools, tennis courts, playgrounds, pavilions, or gazebos. What we were seeing were a number of potential variance requests for swimming pools and tennis courts. A lot of individuals who were not able to meet that 20-foot, our current 20-foot setback. We took a look at some swimming pool regulations in other jurisdictions and found that many of them meet the accessory dwelling requirement. We were a little concerned about that in terms of stability of the land itself. If a, say, 10-foot swimming pool were dug down beside 5 feet from a property line and then an accessory structure were built 5 feet from that, we were concerned that there might be some structural issues. So we do feel like that 10-foot is necessary to avoid that. However, we do think that the 20-foot is not necessary to continue to uphold. Some other suggestions we have gotten over the years and wanted to proffer to you all for consideration were this idea that a pavilion or a gazebo would be considered separate from an accessory structure. This is something that has a roof but no sides. It's not, there's no HVAC. It is really just for someone to put patio furniture under and sit under. Currently, pavilions are considered accessory structures, so they have to be 15 feet from any building, 5 feet from a property line. And so we have proffered that for you all as being 5 feet from any building and 5 feet from any property line, so that there's a little less difficulty in maybe putting one between your garage and your home. Decorative lighting, that was another thing that we don't currently have. String lights, pathway lights, our current illumination standards really don't provide for anything of that nature. We know we have it, but our ordinance doesn't provide for that, so we wanted to include that in there. Tennis courts, we wanted to provide a little bit more screening for neighboring property owners as well as to the right-of-way, so we've included that in there. And then playground equipment, we don't currently have any restrictions on those, but we are not necessarily seeing it here, but in other jurisdictions, playgrounds popping up in front yards, and that's something that we wanted to, again, proffer to you for consideration as maybe being more appropriate in a side or a rear yard. So those are all of the items that we have brought before you today. Happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for Molly?
With the Article 5E, about the decorative lighting, we've got a lot of houses that have decorative lighting up for the whole house. Would this preclude that as I read this?
You mean like Christmas lights? Or
No, like floodlights?
floodlights. I would need to look into that. I don't believe it would preclude floodlights, but if there's some level of lighting that you're concerned about and want to make sure we're precluding, that is something I could look into to make sure it's written in that manner.
Because I can think of a number of historic houses that have floodlights lighting up the beautiful facades. And I think the Cultural Center has lights lighting up that wonderful.
Well, and that's why we put including but not limited to. So we just wanted to make it clear that decorative lighting, lighting that might highlight architectural features, things of that nature were permitted.
Right.
Okay. The public hearing is open then for the text amendment. Anyone here to speak for or against? Public hearing is closed, and it's back to the council. For a vote?
I'm trying to get back to it.
Me too. Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we approve text amendment 2024010 text for the city of Madison.
Second.
Are there any more discussion? All in favor, show of hands. Opposed, none, vote unanimously. Thank you. HPC appeal, Luann Wetzel, 213 North Main Street. Ms. Wetzel, if you would come and state your name and tell us why you're here.
I'm a little bit caught off guard here. It was my understanding that my role this evening was to just listen. that Ken would be addressing the situation and that I would not have the opportunity. So if you all would bear with me while I pull my thoughts together, I would be grateful.
Well, if you just hold for a moment, Ken, did you have a report that you wanted to give?
Yes, sir.
If you would come forward, then we'll allow Ken
Okay,
to come
thank you.
forward. Sure.
You'll just give me a second. Sorry, we got all day. And Jay, did you want to?
Yeah, I'm going to kind of lay the framework of what we're
Okay.
doing tonight. So the applicant has already been before the Historic Preservation Committee. They have made their decision to, I think, deny her request, and she has appealed that decision timely. And so it comes to the mayor and council when it's appealed from HPC. And your role is to review the HPC's record and the testimony and evidence that was presented in HPC and see if they were abused their discretion in denying the application. And so you are kind of limited to what was presented there that night and the witnesses and the applicants that were there that night. That is what you're limited to as far as what you hear tonight. They can't bring in expert witnesses or anything at this point. So you are just reviewing the HPC's record to see whether their denial was within their line or if it was out of line, basically. And so that's kind of your limited review tonight. And I think Ken has a report, sort of a summary of what took place at the HPC.
And if you don't mind, I always like to, I like to clarify exactly what you said.
Yes.
In other terms, what I'm hearing you say, it's our job to review the decision-making process of the HPC.
Correct.
Not of the issue itself, whether it was a good decision or whether the applicant should.
It's really whether they had the authority or the guidelines to make the decision that they made. And so if they were just way out of line, their guidelines say this, and then they made a decision outside of that, that'd be abusing the discretion. That's kind of the standard of review you're under. And so you are correct. You are just reviewing their process to see if they had authority and it was in their guidelines to make the decision that they did.
Thank you.
Yes.
And I'm going to put just a fine point on that. So in the ordinance, Jay mentioned that you can reject the HPC's decision if they abuse their discretion. The ordinance says that an abuse of discretion may be found where the record contains no evidence to support the decision of the commission. So given that we are only looking at the record from the meeting, I will point out a few things that are in your packet that are part of the record that I feel proves that there is evidence that was supported the decision of the commission. So first of all, you'll see in the staff comments on the staff report, the first paragraph, it says that a review of recent past done in 2018 noted this building as contributing. So that means in 2018 it was determined that this building has some historic significance and therefore it would not be treated the same way that a non-historic building would be, that it follows those guidelines that we have set out for historic buildings. To undergird that, the staff report points out some interesting and significant things about the history of this building. One is that when it was built as a colonial store, which was a grocery chain. Only 3 times had the colonial stores deviated from their basic store lines, Williamsburg, Old Salem, and Madison. So we were keeping pretty good company when this building was built. The officials agreed to deviate from their usual architecture after a plea from local ladies representing the Beautification Committee, Historical Society, and the Civic Design Committee. So this building is a good example of Madison having a focus on appropriate design within the historic area. Of course, this preceded the Preservation Commission, and so it was left up to these committees to make that plea directly to corporate, and they changed the design. So this is kind of a very significant design in that it was only done in 2 other places besides Madison. Also in the history of this it shows the evolution of grocery stores both nationally and within Madison. Originally, the Rogers store was at the corner of Main and Washington Street, where TJ Bishop's is now. Rogers store was eventually bought out by Colonial Stores, and in the 50s, they built on Jefferson Street. It was, I think, the first iteration of self-service grocery stores, meaning that shoppers went in and got their own things instead of going in and having a clerk pick it all out for them and then ring it up for them. And then as grocery stores evolved, that store there on Jefferson Street really didn't meet modern standards, and so they built the current building that we're talking about in 1965. And it had, a lot of things that we associate with modern grocery stores, a meat department, a produce department, that sort of thing. And believe it or not, it did not keep up with modern grocery stores. And so when the Piggly Wiggly was built down the street, they knew that they were either going to have to build something or be done. And so that's when the grocery store closed at that location and left Madison, because they weren't willing to build a new generation of grocery stores. The other thing the commission considered in all this is that they were cognizant that this would also set precedent. And so you have in your packet the guidelines that painting the exteriors of unpainted brick or unpainted surfaces for historic buildings is something that does not get approved. And so even though this is recent past, this would set a bad precedent to approve painting this, because that means any of those early 60s buildings would also then would be opened up for the possibility of painting. And as you'll see in the minutes, our chairman of the commission explained that this building was part of a renewed interest in Williamsburg and colonial revival in the 1960s, most of which was executed in red brick. So we have several buildings from that era downtown. They are red brick, and including this building. So to approve painting this red brick, which actually is significant to the style of the building, also would put in jeopardy several other buildings for the same thing. So I'll direct your attention to the motion that was made to deny. It says the commission's findings, so that they found specific evidence that the unpainted condition of the brick is significant to the historic character of the property, and painting would negatively impact the property's historic character. So the last thing I would mention from the minutes, you'll see, and possibly the appellant will bring this up, that at the meeting, the applicant pointed out that there are older buildings in downtown Madison that have been painted. And the assumption was made that that was approved by the Preservation Commission, but at the time, I, as staff, pointed out that all those buildings downtown that have been painted, all that occurred before we had a Preservation Commission. So it wasn't that the Preservation Commission approved that and they were going against their guidelines. It's that this happened before we had these rules in place. And so since then, this is something that's not been allowed. So I hope you find that the record shows that the commission found facts, compared that to their guidelines, and made an appropriate decision.
Okay, any questions for Ken?
I do, Mr. Wright.
Sure.
Ken, is there any other alternative that could be suggested? I mean, what if they wanted to put hardy plank or something on the side? The brick has to stay?
The brick has to stay, yes.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions? Pastor?
No, we're good, thank you.
Okay, I saw you lean forward. I thought something was coming.
I thought, no, I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Wister, you'll appeal the HPC's decision. You want to tell us why?
Thank you so much for giving us this opportunity. And as far as precedents, the term precedents is concerned, we've seen precedents voted in favor of several times this evening. For people like myself that are moving, that as you continue to move forward in the city, making these types of decisions, I would encourage you to revisit this. We are just simply wanting something that is aesthetically pleasing, that we can be proud of. We spend more time in that building than we do in our own home. We would also encourage you to realize that things that are aesthetically pleasing generate a higher volume of income, which not only helps us, but it also benefits the city. It's paint. Was my understanding. I didn't realize that the decisions had been made to allow the other buildings in town to be painted prior to a historic preservation committee. I was not aware of that. However, if this is so important, why are they not made to take their paint off? I mean, if it truly is important that this town's historic brick be revealed, then why are they not asked to sandblast theirs? You know, to me, it absolutely makes no sense, no continuity. There are a lot of things, I look at the post office in Madison, it has no handicap access. Well, that's because it was built prior to the handicap laws. Is that a good thing? My husband can't even go into the post office anymore. You know, precedents are set for a reason. And I really just do question this. I mean no harm to anyone. I just want what would be good for our business, and I want it to be aesthetically pleasing. I have heard over and over again that the Historic Preservation Committee is not the pretty patrol. However, when I drive into a city, the first thing I notice are the aesthetics. That's what makes me want to come and spend money and stay. And as it is, our building doesn't look that nice. I apologize for being emotional. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And I believe that Ken said that this decision was made in 2018, is that right, Ken? 2018? For the painting of the bricks?
No, in 2018, the commission deemed this a building worth protecting.
Okay. And most times when a decision is made prior to, that's pretty much grandfathered in, so the city can't go back and tell them to blast the paint off the building, it's grandfathered in. So are there any comments from our council members tonight? You want to make a vote to uphold the HPC appeal?
If I may, I'll just
Sure.
feel that it's an unfortunate situation. I feel that the HPC followed the guidelines, and there's significant basis for the decision they made, so I would uphold their decision. So I move that we uphold the decision of the HPC.
And deny the appeal?
And deny the appeal, yes.
I would second that motion.
Are there any more discussion? All in favor, show of hands. Opposers, none, vote unanimously. Thank you so much. No unfinished business, new business. The Rodney Andrews Memorial Committee requests renaming of Wellington Park. Minister Aaron Carter and the committee members. But before Mr. Carter come, Jay, Attorney, we was handing a letter this afternoon right before our council meeting explaining some guidelines. Did you get a copy of that?
For, which one are you talking about, Mr. Mayor?
The Rodney Andrews Memorial Committee, we just got a committee of
City
city facilities
Yeah, I
naming
got it.
policies.
Yeah, I got a copy of the facilities naming policy,
Okay,
yes, sir.
so what did you think? What's your reaction to that?
It's a policy in place by the the city. I mean, is there a specific question on that, Mr. Mayor?
I mean, we need to hear them. They're here tonight.
Yeah.
They was not notified prior to coming tonight, the guidelines that the city have. Was any guidelines sent to them, city clerk, as to?
They have this.
They have that as well. Okay. So, Mr. Carter, if you're here, you would come.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Pastor Aaron Carter, and I am the chair of the Rodney Andrews Memorial Committee. Our committee was established in September 2023. It was created to honor the life and the legacy of Mr. Rodney Andrews, a native son of Madison, Georgia, and Morgan County. Rodney was a 1994 graduate of Morgan County High School, where he was salutatorian of his class. He was awarded the prestigious Dupree Scholarship and attended Georgia Tech, where he earned a BS in economics. His academic journey continued with a doctorate from the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, and further studies at the esteemed Harvard University. Rodney was an African-American scholar who excelled in a field where representation was scarce, and he became a dedicated advocate for diversity, mentoring students from marginalized backgrounds. He was a role model who understood the challenges they faced and was always ready to offer guidance and support. Even though Rodney lived in Texas, he remained deeply connected to his roots in Madison. He frequently visited, never forgetting where he came from, and was known as a devoted family man. For many in our community, Rodney Andrews was more than a brilliant scholar. He was a symbol of perseverance, hope, and achievement. He defied the odds and reached extraordinary heights, and his life and legacy deserves to be recognized and remembered in the town that shaped him. Therefore, we come before you today with a simple yet significant request. We seek to rename Wellington Park as Rodney Andrews Park. This renaming would serve as a lasting tribute to Rodney's resilience and to the limitless possibilities that come from hard work, dedication, and the pursuit of excellence, values we hope to pass on to future generations. Rodney's journey began right here in Madison, Georgia. Wellington Park was a place where he spent his time in his youth, holds special meaning. It was a place where he formed lifelong friendships, where he felt safe and where he could be himself without judgment. Renaming this park in his honor would transform it into a beacon of inspiration, reminding all who visit to strive for greatness, just as Rodney did. Therefore, we respectfully call on you, the council members, to heed to the voices of over 500 supporters who believe in this change. This is more than just a name change. It is a way to honor one of our own who has become an excellent example for all to follow. Let Rodney Andrews' legacy live on in Madison, and let this park bear his name as a testament to his remarkable life. This is my presentation.
So, Mr. Carter, would you like to lead those signatures with our city clerk?
Sure.
Could I add to
this part.
those things that you named about him? I mean, as far as he's a bridge between continents and countries.
His auntie at this time would like to speak, if that is so permitted.
Yeah, I mean, it's the committee, so it's.
Okay, it's just basically, he's only touching the surface of what this young man's capabilities were and what he actually did in the world. My nephew actually was a bridge between the United States and other countries. Not only did he just do in the United States and a spokesperson for the University of Texas, he traveled all over the world setting up databases and instructing them and giving them access to statistics they would have never had if he wasn't the one to go and set this stuff up. Their connection every day. The University of Texas is the main headquarters for other continents, countries that he set up so they could have access to this information. Not only that, my nephew has written laws that were passed through the Senate and that was on the president's desk that are some of the laws that we are living by right now that were passed that most people don't even know about. And, excuse me, not only that, he was an economics teacher, and he taught and he tutored. He was also the basic head professor in the economics department, but he wrote formulas. This young man has formulas and patents that are registered with the likes of people of Einstein. They are on file. He traveled from state to state, and he never forgot Georgia. And as I speak right now, there's some other things, and I got a little emotion, that he has done that only the surface has been covered on him. It's deep. He handled millions and millions of dollars, which he told me I was supposed to say a long time ago, but I did my research on him. I know his capacities. I know what he did. And half of the work that he did is out there and it's working for us today, but nobody knew who was behind it. He has did the research and compared what is needed for young educators, young people starting from Head Start, what they need, what needs to be searched to find what drives these kids. What do we need to put in place for them to have to understand that you don't have to have a 4.0 or 3.9 to go to college and get an education, and where to start at the beginning to where they're installing these kids to get them ready for school. I mean, he worked tireless because behind the scene, a lot of people from Morgan County, but from all over the state, they went through his research and were highly placed in institutions that they would never be able to go if they hadn't been under the tutelages of what he had studied and experienced and got passed. Also, I just wanted to say that he was more than just a man with a bachelor, master's, doctor. He was more than that. He was more than that. Half of the time, if you saw him, if he came here, unless you just knew him, you would not know his capabilities. I mean, and when you saw him, he was just like one of us. Head was not up in the air, not looking down his nose, always one of us, gonna visit everybody. He never changed from the day he was in high school until he graduated. And as we speak now, while we trying to figure out how we can keep his name or whatever alive, we got institutions right now as I speak already getting their stuff together. Georgia Tech, Michigan. I mean, people from foreign countries, they call him their brother. And what he did for their country and there are people that came into the United States and went to these elaborate schools and were bullied and scorned and treated like third world people, but not my nephew. You got people that stands in their country and they say they are a wall from him. Nobody from Morgan County, because the kids that graduated with him, a lot of them are gone, but we still got some representatives here. Most of the grown folks or whatever now, they don't recognize who Rodney Andrews truly was. He don't brag on himself and to be offended Probably because I'm standing up here saying that, because if it's never anything here to identify my nephew, it doesn't have to be, because we know. But I wish everybody else knew the degree and the length and what it was natural. It wasn't nothing he had to go out there to prove to himself or whatever. He was anointed. God put him in places you never would have thought a person from Morgan County could be. He touched hearts. He touched lives. He helped so many. This man would be up here for the night. He doing his homework. He doing this. He tutoring kids. He's still connected with the people at Georgia Tech, Michigan, whatever. Any of the alumni, anybody that worked at that school, when they needed him, always on call. How he did all of it, I don't know. And still ran this research and whatever. And right now, they've already honored him several times at the University of Texas. And they continue to honor him. They got tributes for him. They got his whole legacy written up. He had 2 offices at that particular place. Nobody is occupying them. They're trying to decide if they're going to do that. But I'm just so grateful that there are people out there in the world that understands and know what this young man is about. Now, I don't think his hometown fully understands it. And I really don't, because he wasn't a person out there to make it known. It's not too many people that know. We just, discuss it among ourselves. We humble or whatever. But in making a decision, no matter what the tribute is, or whatever it is, or whatever, and God forgive me for saying this, you won't have another Rodney Andrews come to Morgan County, not a black one. And I guarantee you this, he was beyond expectations. He was beyond, to me, what the human capabilities of a young man coming from rural Morgan County. And even at his funeral, people from Tech, everywhere, they could not understand how somebody from a rural county in Morgan County School was mentioned, had to have some excellent teachers. You had to have some excellent teachers to see what was in this boy. You know what I mean? Tell me if I'm taking too long. Is my 15 minutes up? My 15 minutes up.
Well, we have other speakers who are going to speak tonight.
What you say, sir?
We have other speakers who are going to speak tonight.
Okay, and I'm gonna cut it off at that. But, if it doesn't go through or whatever, it's whatever, but need to be some background did on it, just let us know not only was he special, we are special that he came through our system. It says a whole lot about our teachers and our community, our county. Because when he went to Tech, they were teaching calculus over at that school. This is how much his teachers and the school system thought of him. So you need some higher education in math and stuff. You need this and you need that. They incorporated it, So when the kids did go off, they had a chance to have what everybody else had. And that's how much his teachers thought of him. Miss Askew, can't think all in that. That's how much they respected what he said and what he thought. So we ain't just dealing with your average doctor, bachelor, masters. You're fooling with somebody this extent. And there'll never be another Rodney Andrews.
Thank you, ma'am. Pastor Brown, are you speaking? Who? Nobody? Anybody else?
May I say something? We are here in support.
Okay, you're here in support.
She said it was-
Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Anthony Williams. I am pastor of the Thankful Baptist Church here in Madison, Georgia. I am a graduate of the Morgan County. I am a childhood friend of Rodney Andrews. And I wanted to come because his aunt and his pastor, Carter, talked about what he did globally. But I want to tell you what he did locally.
Come on now.
Because I know many of you are going to say, well, he did all of that over there for Michigan. He did all of that over there for Texas. Well, what did he do in Madison? Well, as a preacher, I'm reminded of Matthew 6:4, where it says that God says that your private works will be rewarded publicly. And I believe that this is Rodney's public time to be rewarded what he has done privately. Rodney tutored many, but he did not do it so that he could get the accolades. He did not do it so he can be spoken highly of. Matter of fact, I'm married to a product of Rodney Andrews. Rodney Andrews tutored my wife, and in January, she will be graduating as a nurse practitioner. Rodney not only tutored her, Rodney tutored my children and helped my children. My daughter is now an entrepreneur living in Atlanta, Georgia, because she is a product of Rodney Andrews. So you may be wondering in your mind, does he deserve this? I say no. He deserves more.
Mr. Mayor, may I make one statement? May I make a statement, Mr. Mayor?
Sure.
At this time, Jay, if it's possible, can I step down from the dais and walk out and support everyone here and support Rodney Andrews?
If you would like to, yes.
So I'm leaving my seat as Mayor Pro Tem of the City of Madison at this time, and I'm walking out to sit and support you all.
Yeah, that a speaker, come up front, sir.
Good evening. My name's Jay Doss. I was fortunate. Oh, sorry, Miss Carey. I was fortunate enough to be a classmate of Rodney's from the time we were pre-K to the time we graduated. I know Mr. Aaron. I got patted up by Mr. Murray with Rodney one time. If you didn't know Rodney as brilliant as he was also a joker, and he always cared about everything with his heart. I think the biggest thing I would say about this is I think, Mr. Carter and Williams have talked about it. Rodney's legacy is much more than we're talking about tonight. Right. And I think y'all are the first step in maybe our school system and hopefully the county with this new brick facility they're building, giving Rodney what he deserves. Rodney is the light that shows every kid in this county that you can succeed and go far, and it doesn't have to be based on your athletic ability. Because a lot of children, I'm currently the assistant director at Putnam County Recreation Department. My family's worked at the Morgan County Recreation, forever. There's other ways. Rodney personally helped me get my degree after I got out of the Army. Rodney I think everyone in here knows how much we're missing. And I think this is a good first step. And I think y'all will be doing a tremendous honor to this man to start this, because I hope others will follow. Thank y'all for letting me talk.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
I have made a choice myself tonight to stand on behalf of Rodney Andrews as a citizen and not as Mayor Pro Tem. I have known this family almost my entire life. I've known his mom from the age of 16 up until now, and I know his dad's family as well. Rodney was an amazing man, not just to the people in the city, but as they said, around the world. So this is not just about Rodney. This is about the people behind Rodney, the young boys and girls that are at Morgan County High School. It's about them to see something named in my district, in our district, in the city, after an African-American male. That's my little spiel.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else here to speak? And I personally believe that every council member on this council would agree he has earned the recognition. But I'm going to refer back to our city attorney as to city facilities name and policy, and hopefully that our council can get together and to find out what we need to do, Jay.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. I was given this policy this afternoon. I think it was adopted in 2010. I think most people in this room have a...
Can you pull that mic closer?
Yeah. Sorry, can everyone hear me now? Okay. I was given this policy, which is entitled the city facility naming policy, it looks like it was adopted by the city in April of 2010, and signed by the mayor at that time, Bruce Gilbert. And it just lays out the procedure that I guess the council at that time adopted. I was not here at that time, but it is just a policy of the city of how to name about. So, you know, it gives it some options of how to name facilities, parks, the like, and it is local historical context name, which they give an example in here of Round Bowl Springs Park or Indian Creek wastewater treatment facilities. They give a local or a natural historical name, which is more geographical, so Monticello Road or Rogers House. And then there's the third option, which is commemorative name, which is I think what Mr. Andrews would fall under. And this is, and I'll read exactly what it says in this policy. An individual, family, or group of historical or cultural significance with submittal of a one-page biographical sketch providing documentation of direct civic contribution to the facility or the city overall, which I believe the group has done. Written documentation of approval by next of kin of person, if available or possible, is also required to be part of the proposal, and a nominator shall have donated significant funds as to cover costs associated with the public notice, new and/or replacement of signs, and dedicated ceremony. And then it has a definition of an individual of historical or cultural significance. And I am just reading these out. I did not know Mr. Andrews personally. I am not here to say one way or the other whether he qualifies as these, but this is the policy that the city has adopted in 2010. The minimum qualifications are deceased for a period of at least 5 years, B, a native to or clearly identified with the city of Madison, C, made exceptional service contributions to the community in his or her field of endeavor, and D, an inspiration to others to make use of their talents. And so that is the policy of the city as it sits currently. I will say there is nothing in this policy that prevents the council here of amending it, re-looking at it, deciding to change it or stick with the same. And when John told me about this proposal before I had this policy, I told him, you know, the way I know it is parks, streets, everything is in the power of the city council to name or change or whatever. You know, that's how it operates in most cities that I'm familiar with. So this is the policy you have. So as it sits tonight, this is the policy you have. And so if you want to look at it further, consider it or whatever, that is something that is in y'all's power and to amend that policy. But what I just read is sort of what is on the table for this evening.
So will the council be in agreement to to get together and talk about this, rename it, just discuss it, since this happened back in 2010, I think you said, 2010?
Yeah, this policy is dated April the 12th, 2010.
Right. And decided we're going to change the policy, just make a decision to do it right, but to just do it right. And then when a citizen comes before us, they will know then what's going to take place.
Can we address that?
Sir?
May we address that policy?
Sure, go ahead.
With all due respect to the standing policy that was established in 2010, we understand that it's already been overwritten. It was overwritten in 2015 by the same mayor that signed this, Bruce Gilbert, and the renaming of Washington Park to Gilbert Park. So you want to go and discuss it, it's already been discussed, and it's already been overridden. I see no reason why why can't it be overridden tonight? Why do you need time to discuss it? If it was done before, it can be done again.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
That park was named after Bruce Gilbert, and it came under the 30 years of public service. It was not.
But it's not written in here. There's nothing in here about 30 years of public service.
I don't see that either, Mr.
It's
Lake.
not in here. It's just say 5 years deceased. Bruce is still living.
Mr. Mayor, may I?
Sure.
I too care deeply about Rodney Andrews. I coached him. I coached Jay Dotts back there. And he was an inspiration to everyone. My son, Jeffrey, told me that Rodney was the smartest person he'd ever seen in Morgan County. I've also had other great young black men, young men at that time that were on my team, that have also gone out and done great stuff. Jamon Sims came back to more.
Not like my nephew.
I'm not arguing that, and you know that, but.
What's your point?
Can I give my point?
Yes.
That's what I'm trying to do. Thank you. My point is, I agree, we need something named after him. And Pastor, I recommended that we look at the Madison Gymnasium, where all of this started. All of it. When the rec department, I was in the rec department, and I was on the board for years. And we didn't have a facility at all. We were using the Lincoln Gym over at the thing. And I just thought that it's tied into education, it's tied into all the young people here that played with him, served on teams with him. I just suggested that, okay? Go ahead.
Just want to correct you. It didn't start at the gym, it started at Blacktop. Am I right? And Blacktop is Wellington Park in our community, and that's where it started. He may have gone to the rec department, but it started at Blacktop for him. And that's why we're standing here today. And class of 94 is in the room, class of 94? Class 94 is in the room. That's just we are very close class. There were several scholars, but Rodney excelled us all. I mean, we've got a principal that's over at the middle school, Wyatt. So, I mean, we have a huge class of scholars, but Rodney just exceeded us all. And we stand here today asking, this is just a small thing that we want to do for him. We want his legacy to live forever and ever here in this community, the community that shaped him, the community that he never forgot, and friendships and relationships that he kept until his death. So, just correction.
And Sherry, I agree with you there too, totally. But my experience was when I came here in '81, and I got involved with the recreation department. That's where I met Rodney. That's where I met Jamon Sims, Jermaine Martin, Rico Beasley. I think those were also members of your class. You had a phenomenal class.
We do.
And I definitely want something named after him.
Mayor,
So why don't we do this?
Well, Mayor, can I make a comment?
Sure.
Before we?
Sure.
I want to tell you my perspective on this. In Wellington Park, and I just learned from my colleague on the council just last week, blacktop. I hadn't heard that term before, and that was a new one on me. I've been in Madison 19 years, so I don't have the history. To me, that park belongs to the residents of the Canaan neighborhood, and because of its historic significance as the black park before integration, it belongs to the black community in Madison writ large, even if you don't live in Canaan, in my opinion. I think for me to decide what that park should be named is presumptuous. I defer to what the people of that community want that park to be named. That's my position. The fact you've got 500 signatures.
514.
Thank you. Pastor Carter for, yeah, so that's just kind of my thinking on it. It's not for me to make that decision, I don't think. I defer to what the people in that area and the black community at large want.
Yes, ma'am.
Up here, y'all make great points. I want to elaborate on what he said and what Sherry said, because I think for the most part, the gymnasium, that's a great idea. And like you said, you met some great people come through the recreation department. I'm sorry, you meet some great kids coming through the recreation department. But I think I want to elaborate what he said, that's our community, that was Rodney's community. And a lot of kids that can afford to join the recreational services. Like they can't pay for $110 for recreational, but they can walk up to the Blacktop from Morgan Circle and from Martin Luther King Drive and Blue Moon Hill where he lived. They might not never play at the recreation center, but they're definitely gonna go to the Blacktop. And when they see his name, they will know him. And like she said, that's a beacon of hope and inspiration for kids that know he started there and what he accomplished. They might not never go to the gym or the recreation because they can't afford to go get those services. And even if they do, they might not even pay attention to that name across town. But every time they ride the bus and pass by the Blacktop, every time they have to walk to the liquor store, I'm sorry, but it's just being honest, or whatever store, because they don't even have transportation. They'll walk by and see, I'm walking now, but one day maybe I might be like Rodney. They might not never walk across town. They might ride and see the gym leaving school, but they'll definitely go across that Blacktop and see what that hope and inspiration that Rodney stapled there. And that gives them hope. And like you said, and that you really made a great point, it's hard for you to decide or even like relate to like, well, what a park should be named for us or what will really mean something to us. And that's so very empathetic of you because that's absolutely right. But being a person his first cousin who grew up with him and who has played and lived on that area side with my grandmother and played the Blacktop, that is a beacon of hope for the young kids growing up. And I think it'll be a wonderful idea, and I'm very much in support of it. Not because he's my cousin, because it's just the truth, Thank you.
So just one final question, back to our attorney again. I think the committee has stated that things that was read tonight on naming, the facilities naming, and the park was not one of those. Would you agree?
State that again, Mr. Mayor?
Naming facilities in the park was not one of those. What the committee said were, we had a park named after former mayor.
You're talking about the one named after Gilbert Park?
Right.
Yeah. And so I don't know the specifics on that vote. Again, I was not here. I have a copy of the minutes in front of me, and all it says is a council member made the motion to rename Washington Park to Gilbert Park. Another one seconded, and it was approved unanimously. That's all I have. I don't know the specifics about, I heard tonight Mr. Gilbert is still living. I don't know Mr. Gilbert personally, but I don't know what policy, if there's one that was amended from this in this time. This is the 2010 one's the only one that I have in front of me, so I don't know the specifics of. I think Mr. Latham mentioned 30 years of service. That's also not in the policy that I have in front of me, but so I don't really have a great answer to you of why that was done in 2015 or what policy that was following.
And I agree, Eric, I agree with Councilmember Joyce, and I think all of us here tonight agree that he has done something great in his life. We all agree to that. And my theory is, personally, we just don't have criteria to support that naming the park after Mayor Gilbert. I think Councilman Joyce, Councilman Latham said 30 years of services, So, but he's still alive. You know, he's still alive. So I guess what I'm trying to say is we're here tonight, and the community is here tonight to say, let's do it. And I think we need to get something in place after tonight to see what we're going to do going forward. Now, if you say anything different, attorney, we'll do what you say do.
That is a question for the council if they want to amend the policy or not, or clean it up, or whatever they wish, so.
Well, if I may. You want to speak in the mic?
Yeah, you want to use the mic?
Go ahead.
You do-
Go
oh,
ahead.
No.
Do you want-
You want me to say it?
Sure, just, sure.
Just give me a second. Attorney, what I'd like to do is propose that we amend that policy and eliminate the 5 years. And the council can do that right here tonight. And I think we've heard enough. And I think, like I told you, I totally want something named after him. And I'm making the motion that we strike 5 years and pull it out. And then that way we won't have to go through this again.
So if I just may add some clarity to your motion, you tell me if I get anything wrong. Your motion, it would be to adopt the April 12th, 2010 city facilities naming policy, but with the amendment of striking deceased for at least 5 years from the definition of person of historic or cultural significance.
Yes, and the reason I'm making that, if we don't do that, we're setting a precedent. You've heard the word precedent quite a bit here tonight, and I just don't, I just think that we need to, that's why I'm proposing to remove that and strike it.
We're in the middle of a motion. Hold on, just,
Okay.
if we're going to treat it as a
Get a
motion.
Yes.
Second?
So the motion that we
Eliminate 5
made,
years?
so the motion that Ed just made is just to eliminate 5 years?
Yes.
Yes.
As a condition.
So Mayor Pro Tem, if you would like me to read the if we take
ahead.
that as stricken, if you want me to read the other 3, I can do that.
Go ahead.
And so it would leave a native to or clearly identified with the city of Madison, Georgia, made exceptional service contributions to the community in his or her field of endeavor, and an inspiration to others to make use of their talents. So those would be the 3 items that would define a person of historic or cultural significance, which is a requirement for a commemorative name of a city facility, which includes a park.
Doesn't Rodney qualify whether we have a 5-year clause or not? Does he
That's
not
what-
qualify under this criteria?
I think that's what,
That's what he's saying.
yeah.
We wouldn't have to strike that 5 years, right?
How long has he been deceased?
How long has he been? A couple of years?
1 year,
1 year?
23 is when he passed.
23.
So that 5-year would be prohibitive right now, because it's got to be all 4. It's,
So we need to strike it.
that's correct.
That's what I was trying to say. And that's my motion.
Strike the 5 years. Okay. Did you second that motion?
So we're making just a motion to strike the 5 years, or we're going to go ahead and rename the park tonight?
Well, let's make that motion first, and then we'll.
Let's strike it first, please.
Do I need to strike it first?
Motion.
The
Second
motion is on the table to strike it,
Just
so we have to address the motion on the table
Okay,
first.
second.
Are there any more discussion from the council? All in favor, show of hands.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make another motion.
I'm
Did
not-
all the council?
I'm abstaining because I got this document right at the beginning of the meeting.
Yeah.
I would like to give this a little more thought myself, but you go ahead and vote, and that's why I'm
Oh, if you- I'm
abstaining.
sorry.
So
All in
we can go
favor?
ahead, are we making a motion now?
I think the motion and second has been made. Councilman Joyce is just sustaining. All in favor, show of hands.
You just-
1, 2, 3, 4. 4 councilors for, abstaining, Councilmember George. Motion approved.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
may I make a motion that we name the park after Rodney Andrews tonight?
Second that motion.
Are there any more discussion?
I just want to add to that.
Sure.
Because I think it's really important, because it looked like we were kind of dancing around all of this thing, but
We have been dancing
Okay,
around.
wait, I'm getting to talk, wait a second. But look, we've got, when do we ever get to see this community show up here? Bless you for being here, but the thing is either, how could, we work so hard to try to involve the African-American community in a lot of what we do, and I just couldn't imagine that we could do anything but agree with what you wanted, just to send us more, even as much as we can, a signal to say, we support you, and we want to be there for what you want, and if that community, and I think it's meaningful for your community, and the community in whole is for Madison, is just absolutely outstanding. So I appreciate all of your effort for bringing this to fruition.
Okay.
Thank you for your.
Mr. Mayor, may I make a final comment?
Sure.
Not only do I agree that the park needs to be named after Mr. Rodney Andrews, but I think it should be further. I know for a fact that Rodney was an education buff. I've been knowing his mom long enough and his dad long enough to know. I remember a story that Brian told me when I was shampooing her hair. That's how long it's been. I don't want to say what year that was, but she bought a set of encyclopedias, and Rodney read the encyclopedias. Am I correct, Brian? I can't see your face. I'm correct. Yes, that's his mom, and his dad is sitting on the back, Mr. Freddie Andrews. So, you guys, it should be way more than just the park. It should be more. But
So-
thank you all for coming tonight.
So would you say the Board of Education should be the next stop? He was an educator.
Will y'all carry the motion, please?
We need to finish the vote. Yes, sir.
It's been motioned.
It's been motioned and seconded.
We've had we need to vote.
We haven't voted yet.
We just need to vote.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, me and the clerk were over here talking about I know there's a lot of excitement in the room. There was a motion in a second, but there was never a vote. So we
That's
need
right.
the most important part
All
of
in
this.
favor, show of hands. Opposed is none, the vote unanimously.
Sherry.
I just want to say one more thing. I just want to make it on the record that the president was set with the park that was named after Bruce Gibbard. I want it to be clear that the president was set with that park. And so we're actually falling in line with, because I understand that policy is important. I actually sit on planning and zoning for the city. So I understand how important it is to follow rules and procedures and policy. But I just want the record to show that we did not set precedent today. It was already set with the naming of the other park. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, TAP grant, sidewalk project, College Avenue.
So I'm going to be Monica right now, and I have a text for exactly what I'm supposed to say, which is we need a motion to proceed on the next 3 tasks as authorized by GDOT for both College and Beacon. I'm not sure Jay can indicate whether those need to be separate motions or if they can be wrapped into one.
So they all grants, right?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
so we can just do them all as one and just
Okay.
name the individual grants in the same motion?
Okay.
As long as they're.
So I move that we can approve all.
All 3 at the same time if.
For both the College Avenue and Beacon Heights sidewalk projects. Yes.
Okay.
And if I recall correctly, these are for the engineering studies.
That is
we've
correct. You've already approved the
received.
contract, we just, that
We've
you
already
have
gotten
to,
the grant
yes,
to pay for
yes.
the study.
That is correct. We just have to get your approval for kind of a bucket of tasks each time. That's how they give out the money.
Would you be so kind as to read the proposed language for an...
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you, Rick.
Motion to authorize, to proceed on the next 3 tasks for both the College Avenue and Beacon Heights sidewalk projects as authorized by Georgia Department of Transportation.
So moved.
Second.
Are there any more discussion? All in favor, show of hands. Opposed, none. Vote unanimously. Is there anything else to come before this council tonight? I believe we have the chili cook-off on Saturday, do we?
That would be next
Is it next Saturday?
Saturday. It is this Saturday, okay. Thank you. This Saturday, yes.
You want to, I know Sarah's not here. You want to expand on that a little bit?
Did we vote on the tab?
Did we vote on the?
No,
we
we
didn't-
haven't
we didn't.
voted.
Okay,
You did.
I'm sorry.
Call
Hold
him
on.
in the
Did
morning,
we-
or I'll email him
Yes,
tonight
that's
and
right.
say you have
We
it.
moved
Stop by
it.
City Hall and ask for you. Does that work?
Go ahead, go ahead.
Or else
I don't
can
have
send you
much
an
to
email.
report. Sarah was here earlier, and I apologize, I don't have a great deal of information, but the chili cook-off is this Saturday, the 19th of October, from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. in Town Park, and I understand that we're going to have a lot of great vendors, and we have some great teams. We had new sponsorships this year, so I want to commend the Main Street staff on some great work that they have been doing. Thank you all so much. Hope to see you there.
Thank you, we'll be there.
Okay, that it? This meeting is adjourned.